when I first started speaking, years ago, I never would have thought I'd have got this far. I never thought that books would have been published, or I would have traveled and people would have listened. And in those old days, I had an old iPhone, and I would literally just stick it to my face and start talking. And the videos wouldn't have any structure, or there wasn't any subject matter or anything like that. And yet what I found was those early kind of quite random videos, posted at silly times, doing silly things, were very, very popular. And I thought about it a couple of days, and I thought I would just love to do a video in which I'm just talking and not trying to go somewhere with it, or not trying to talk about a particular subject, but just literally just talking and just kind of seeing where it goes. Because I must admit, I kind of missed the craziness of the old days before it all got kind of quite serious and it all became about publishing schedules and meetings. And over the last couple of days as well, I've been away for the weekend. I took my better half out for the weekend and just went shopping, went to some restaurants, and just did pretty much ordinary things. And yet it was incredible the amount of insight I was able to glean from just doing really ordinary things. And over the last couple of months, what I found is my talks and videos I'm doing seem to be taking a certain direction, and they seem to be taking a direction back into the life and the ordinariness of life, as opposed to the whole, let's talk about esoteric concepts and let's talk about, whether this word is right or that word is right, and whether that person is in separation or not. And what I found is I'm moving away from a lot of the things I used to say, and the weekend was a kind of further movement away from that, but also a real opening. It's very easy to know of this reality when we're sitting in satsang, or when we are following a tariqa, or whether we are part of a sangha. But can we see this reality that we speak about, that we point about, in the ordinary, in the waiting in the queue to pay for some items that you just picked up, or going to that restaurant and having that delightful conversation with the owner, who's telling you something perfectly ordinary, but you see that there's such a wisdom in that. As I've said, and it's something I've been recently saying a lot more in my talks, is, the journey to self-realization, or the wanting to know self-realization, started from a load of personal issues all blowing up simultaneously. And I sometimes wonder, if I had just dealt with those issues, would I have even wanted to go down this path of one day looking for this thing called self-realization, or whatever's happened, as in these talks and these books and what have you. And what I'm finding is, recently I seem to be moving away from a lot of the things I used to say, and I seem to be moving into more and more of an ordinary life. Like I said, I went away for the weekend with my wife. We went shopping, we did the normal things. And what was really incredible was just getting some time with my other half and being able to just spend some time with her was such a beautiful thing, because I'm always traveling, or I'm always talking to somebody, or I'm always writing. And it was incredible how much I realized I didn't know about her, and how interesting she actually is. And I realized that there is this massive chunk of wisdom that we miss every single day when we're sitting there watching such videos and reading such books and going to such meetings, hoping that we'll wake up so that one day we can go back to life. Well, rather than seek life, why not just go back into life? Like I said, I had a perfectly ordinary weekend. And yet something about that weekend changed me. I was just talking to a friend earlier on, and I realized the impact it will have on my work. I realized that as wonderful as it is talking about self-realization, it's not the be all and end all. I remember reading somewhere saying that self-realization isn't the end, it's just the beginning. And it's the beginning of going into life, and it's the beginning of being ordinary. It's the beginning of just actually living the life that you are at this moment in time so trying to avoid, because of your fears and your insecurities, or because of your experiences, and feeling that if only you can figure out life, then you're about to go back with, the right experience, the right tools to actually live a brave life. Sometimes living a brave life is to live in that fear, live in that agitation, and live in that not knowing. As I've said, the last couple of years, I have literally traveled the length and breadth of the UK and gone across Europe. And in that time, I've found my personal relationships have suffered. I've found that I've not been able to give people the time that they so rightly deserved. And during this pandemic and this locking down, and getting to spend time with the people I love, I'm starting to find that the answers that we seek are right here with us where we are, in our communities, in our relationships, in all the little things that we do, that when we become spiritual, we decide that these aren't enough, and that there is some moment in which the heavens are going to open up and you are going to feel this great bliss, and then finally you can accept your life. And in that erroneous thinking, what you're doing is denying the very answer that's with you all the time. And it's easy to find the answer to God in a book or in a satsang, or sitting with a great sheikh or sitting with a great guru and hearing something that's so out of the ordinary. But can we find it in the ordinary? I was doing a retreat recently, and I remember telling the story of Banzan the monk, who, as he was leaving the monastery, was going through a marketplace and heard somebody say, heard the butcher, as a matter of fact, say that, my meat is the best meat in the market, and immediately woke up. So there are more chances for us to realize who we truly are in the ordinary than in the so-called extraordinary of that enticing satsang call, or of that dialogue between those two teachers, or that master and student. And I wonder why we reject these moments. And maybe it's because of conditioning, and maybe it's because our mind is telling us that this isn't enough and it's got to be something more. But can we actually sit with that and ask ourselves if in fact it is more, or if in fact it is really just this moment? Because, as I said, we're all looking for these huge expansive moments, and yet most of our lives are lived in really ordinary moments. That laughter over a joke, those tears over a sad movie, that just going away for the weekend and just doing things that you want to, and waking up late and pottering around, and having to go clothes shopping when you don't want to, and having that culture shock when you go to a marketplace that you've not been to for years, and realizing how skewed you are away from reality, how you're rejecting the very answer that you're looking for. Because sometimes God can be found in the supermarket. As a matter of fact, the chances are that God can probably be found in the supermarket much more than he can be found in the mosque or the ashram or the temple. And yet, because of this conditioning, and because of all of this mystique of enlightenment, and all of these ideas that we have just taken to be truth without really questioning them, we miss so many opportunities to realize who we are. As I said, I went away for the weekend. My life is normally characterized by jumping on and off planes, writing books and recording videos like this. And it's also wonderful and it's also glamorous. And yet, I learned more checking into a hotel in the next town just to go shopping. I learned more standing in the queue and watching people excited, because sometimes there's a certain spiritual arrogance in us, and we feel we're so much better than the other because guess what? We're looking to get enlightened. But I'm now starting to think, is it a case of those that we look at and we say, well, they're in separation, they're so unspiritual and they're so unconscious? Could it be that they actually have a better handle on it? I was going to say ignorance is bliss, but could it be that in this case that the ignorance that we are accusing others of, is what we're suffering from? Or more importantly, and I'm not quite sure how to really put this across, but could it be that their very not knowing is a perfect expression of knowing, whereas we've created this barrier, the very wanting this has created this huge barrier, and we're oblivious to it, and it's so subtle within us that we will let go of everything and we release so much, but we won't release this barrier of wanting to know. Sometimes I remember many, many years ago, a friend of mine once said to me, ignorance is bliss. And how nice would it be to just work a job and live a normal life and go to the pub on a Friday night and go and have a curry and fall in love and, meet a girl, have some kids and settle down. And maybe that's been the answer all along. And yet, because it isn't the way we feel it should be, we reject the miracle that's happening in our midst, that just being ordinary and doing the day-to-day things that we do, whether it's making a cup of tea or watching that program or washing the car or just generally living without trying to understand it, without trying to make sense of it, without trying to claim it, without trying to have some sort of fanciful event that we can term an awakening or liberation. Maybe that is it. As I said, I went away for a weekend and just watched ordinary people going about their business, liking what they liked and disliking what they disliked. And do I think these people have got it completely right? Possibly not. Do I think that they've got problems? Do I think that their hearts have been broken and what have you? Yes, no doubt they have. And yet they just get on with it. And maybe that's what the answer is, to just get on with it rather than trying to figure it out, trying to have something happen to you or trying to fit life into a neat little box. I for years ran after this thing called self-realization, and I sat with many great teachers and I had great openings and it was also wonderful. And yet what I find, and it's almost comical and it's so beautiful as well at the same time, is that after all the explanations and after all the books and after all the zikrs and after all the methods and after all the travel, that life has just brought me into the ordinary. And there is a great freedom and a great wisdom and a great joy in the ordinary. And it's very easy to discover this great wisdom and this great joy in the extraordinary. But what's so much more beautiful and what is so much more expansive is to discover it in the ordinary. Can we open our eyes to the miracle that's happening to us right here and right now?